Not everyone enjoys a good horror film, but for those of us who do, there is nothing like a good scare. In today's video, we bring you the top 10 best horror movies. Welcome to Unique Top 10s. Insidious is a 2010 supernatural horror film directed by James Wan and starring Patrick Wilson and Barbara Hershey. It is the first installment in the Insidious franchise and the third in terms of the series' in-story chronology. The story centers on a couple whose son inexplicably enters a comatose state and becomes a vessel for ghosts in an astral dimension who want to inhabit his body. Positive reviews have focused on the filmmaker's ability to build suspense. John Anderson of the Wall Street Journal explains, quote-unquote, "What makes a movie scary isn't what jumps out of the closet, it's what might jump out of the closet. The blood, the gore, and the noise of so many fright films miss the horrifying point. Movie watchers are far more convinced instinctively that what we don't know will most assuredly hurt us." The Strangers is a 2008 American psychological horror film written and directed by Brian Bertino. The plot follows Kristen and James, whose stay at a vacation home is disrupted by three masked criminals who infiltrate the home. The screenplay was inspired by two real-life events, the Manson family Tate murders, a multiple homicide, as well as a series of break-ins that occurred in Bertino's neighborhood as a child. Some journalists noted similarities between the film and the Ketty Cabin murders that occurred in Ketty, California in 1981, though Bertino did not cite this as a reference. Contemporary film scholars have interpreted it as a criticism of the perceived safety of pastoral life, as well as an exploration of stranger-on-stranger violence. A sequel, titled The Strangers Pray at Night, was released in 2018. Among the positive reviews, Jeanette Katsoulis of the New York Times said The Strangers is suspenseful, highly effective, and smartly maintains its commitment to tingling creepiness over bludgeoning horror. Hereditary is a 2018 American supernatural horror film written and directed by Ari Aster in his feature film directional debut. It stars Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, and Millie Shapiro as a family haunted by a mysterious presence after the death of their secretive grandmother. Hereditary premiered in 2018 in the midnight section at the 2018 Sundance Film Festival and was theatrically released in the United States in 2018 as well. It was acclaimed by critics, with Colette's performance receiving particular praise, and was a commercial success. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 89%. The website's critical consensus reads, "Hereditary uses its classic setup as the framework for a harrowing, uncommonly unsettling horror film whose cold touch lingers long beyond the closing credits." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 87 out of 100. Scream is a 1996 American comedy slasher film directed by Wes Craven. The film stars David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and Drew Barrymore. Released in 1996, it follows the character of Sidney Prescott, a high school student in the fictional town of Woodsboro, California, who becomes the target of a mysterious killer in a Halloween costume known as Ghostface. The film combines black comedy and whodunit mystery with the violence of the slasher genre to satirize the cliches of the horror movie genre popularized in films such as Halloween from 1978, Friday the 13th, 1980, and Craven's own A Nightmare on Elm Street of 1984. Scream was considered unique at the time of its release for featuring characters who were aware of real-world horror films and openly discussed the cliches that the film attempted to subvert. The Conjuring is a 2013 American supernatural horror film directed by James Wan. It is the inaugural film of the Conjuring Universe franchise. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga star as Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators and authors associated with prominent cases of haunting. The Warrens come to the assistance of the Perron family, who experienced increasingly disturbing events in the farmhouse in Rhode Island in 1971. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reports an 85% approval rating. The website's critical consensus reads, quote-unquote, "Well-crafted and gleefully creepy. The Conjuring ratchets up dread through a series of effective old-school scares." CinemaScore reported that audiences gave The Conjuring an A- grade on a scale of A to F. It was the first horror film to receive an A grade from the company. Sinister is a 2012 British-American supernatural horror film directed and co-written by Scott Derrickson. The film stars Ethan Hawke, Juliet Rylance, James Ransone, Fred Thompson, and Vincent D'Onofrio. The plot revolves around a fictional true crime writer, Ellison Oswald, whose discovery in the attic of his new house of a box of home movies depicting grisly murders puts his family in danger. Sinister was inspired by a nightmare co-writer C. Robert Cargill had after watching The Ring. To add the authenticity of old home movies and snuff films, the Super 8 segments were shot on actual Super 8 cameras and film stock. Variety praised the film as the sort of tale that would paralyze kids' psyches. Reviewer Gary McConaughey of Scotland's Daily Record rated the film 4 out of 5 stars, saying, "This is how Hollywood horror should be done. Sinister covered all of its bases with aplomb." A Nightmare on Elm Street is a 1984 American slasher film written and directed by Wes Craven. The plot concerns 4 teenagers living on one street in the fictitious town of Springwood, Ohio, who were invaded and killed in their dreams, and thus killed in reality by a burnt killer with a bladed leather glove, Freddy Krueger. The film is credited with using many of the tropes found in the low-budget horror films of the 1970s and 1980s that originated with John Carpenter's Halloween and led this subgenre to be called the slasher film. The film includes a morality play where sexually promiscuous teenagers are killed. Critics and film historians state that the film's premise is the struggle to define the distinction between dreams and reality, manifested by the lives and dreams of the teens in the film. Critics today praise the film's ability to transgress the boundaries between the imaginary and real, toying with the audience perceptions. The film was followed by A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. Before we show you the top 3, if you liked this video, please like it and subscribe for more content. Halloween is a 1978 American slasher film directed and scored by John Carpenter and featuring Jamie Lee Curtis. The plot tells about a mental patient, Michael Myers, who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his teenage sister on Halloween night when he was 6 years old. 15 years later, he escapes and returns to his hometown, where he stalks a female babysitter and her friends while under pursuit by his psychiatrist. Some critics have suggested that Halloween may encourage sadism and misogyny by audiences identifying with its villain. Others have suggested that the film is a social critique of the immorality of youth and teenagers in 1970s America, with many of Myers' victims being sexually promiscuous substance abusers, and the lone heroine is depicted as innocent and pure, hence her survival. The Exorcist is a 1973 American supernatural horror film directed by William Friedkin and starred by Linda Blair. When young Regan, Linda Blair, starts acting odd, levitating, speaking in tongues, her worried mother seeks medical help only to hit a dead end. A local priest, however, thinks the girl may be seized by the devil. The priest makes a request to perform an exorcism, and the church sends in an expert to help with the difficult job. It had numerous positive reviews by experts of all type. On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 84%, with an average rating of 8.07 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, "The Exorcist rides its supernatural theme to magical effect, with remarkable special effects and an eerie atmosphere, resulting in one of the scariest films of all time." While Jaws is not a horror movie per se, it is rather a thriller. It appears on our list as an honorable mention because of its impact on people and their fear of sharks and waters in general. It was released in 1975. In the film, a man-eating great white shark attacks beachgoers at a summer resort town, prompting Police Chief Martin Brody to hunt it with the help of marine biologist and a professional shark hunter. The Shining is a 1980 psychological horror film produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick. The film is based on Stephen King's 1977 novel of the same name and stars Jack Nicholson. Jack Torrance becomes winter caretaker at the isolated Overlook Hotel in Colorado, hoping to cure his writer's block. He settles in along with his wife and his son Danny, who is plagued by psychic premonitions. As Jack's writing goes nowhere and Danny's visions becomes more disturbing, Jack discovers the hotel's dark secrets and begins to unravel into a homicidal maniac hellbent on terrorizing his family. Rotten Tomatoes' critical consensus reads, and quote-unquote, "Though it deviates from Stephen King's novel, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is a chilling, often baroque journey into madness, exemplified by an unforgettable turn from Jack Nicholson." So, which is your favorite horror movie? Is there any movie you would like to add to this list? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, please help us with the algorithm by liking, commenting, sharing, and/or subscribing.